Happy Easter. In November 2016, New Zealand experienced a 7.8 magnitude earthquake along the Papatia Fault. Now, the fault line actually crossed the Clarence River. And when the ground ruptured along that fault, the riverbed was lifted up almost 20 feet, blocking the normal path of the river and making the riverbed taller than all of the floodplain surrounding it. Approximately 80 acres of farmland flooded, and it formed a lake for several months. As the flooding receded, a 1 kilometer long new channel formed, shifting the river's course by 45 degrees and sending it right through what had been adjacent farmland. Almost 10 years later, a gorge has been created through the limestone of this now permanent new channel. Looking at online photos of the Clarence River before and after the 2016 earthquake, and seeing how quickly an earthquake can shift and reshape a landscape, I think now I understand a little more why the evangelist Matthew used earthquakes in his gospel. Insurance companies classify earthquakes as acts of God, even though typical home policies don't usually cover the damage that they cause. I think it's safe to say that the evangelist Matthew considered them to be acts of God as well. More specifically, for Matthew, earthquakes signal the end of the current age and the beginning of something new. The end of the current age and the beginning of something new. Just 4 chapters before today's gospel reading, Jesus is sitting on the Mount of Olives, and his disciples ask, "What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" And Jesus answers, "Nation will rise up against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All this is but the beginning of the birth pangs." For Matthew, earthquakes are a sign that something apocalyptic is taking place, that something new is being birthed. No wonder Matthew puts earthquakes in his account of both Jesus' death and his resurrection. At Jesus' death, Matthew tells us that the earth shook, rocks split, tombs opened up, and the bodies of the saints were raised and appeared to people in Jerusalem. Then in today's gospel reading, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary go to the tomb on the first day of the week. Suddenly a great earthquake occurs once again, and an angel comes down from heaven, rolls back the stone, and sits on it. The guards shake and drop to the ground out of fear. But the women hear the angel say this, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has been raised as he said." And then, of course, as the women go to tell the other disciples that Jesus has been raised, they meet the risen Lord themselves. Now, some Jews in Jesus' time believed that there would be a resurrection at the day of the Lord, or the last day, a day when all would be made right in the world. So for Jesus' followers, his resurrection and that of other holy people meant that this new era was beginning. The history of the world, like the Clarence River in New Zealand, was on a completely new trajectory, because resurrection changes everything. We could conceive of a continuing journey of the soul without a bodily resurrection. Some people do. But what the resurrection tells us is that God doesn't abandon this world and leave creation behind. Instead, God transforms it. God is at work making a new heaven and a new earth, and that casts a fresh light on everything. First, knowing that we are participating here and now in God's work of making all things new, brings a new significance, urgency, and meaning to the ministry that Jesus calls us to do. Resurrection means that what we do here not only matters, but as N.T. Wright says, it matters forever. Bishop Wright puts it this way: the resurrection of Jesus means that the present time is shot through with great significance. What is done to the glory of God in the present is genuinely building for God's future. Acts of justice and mercy, the creation of beauty and the celebration of truth, deeds of love and the creation of communities of kindness and forgiveness, these all matter, and they matter forever. Take away the resurrection, and these things are important for the present, but irrelevant for the future. The resurrection means that our ministry is not just about making life easier until we die and go to heaven. It's not just about making things better temporarily. Instead, God is asking us to be co-creators in making all things new, to participate in the permanent healing of the world. And second, knowing that it is God's work in which we are participating opens our imaginations up to hope and dream in ways that we never could otherwise. So often we take our dreams for peace, equality, community, and so many other things, and we whittle those dreams all the way down to bite-sized portions, the amount we can digest without risk of disappointment or injury. These diminished dreams become the most that we hope for. But God is not in the business of mere improvement. God is in the business of transformation. Easter allows us to dream of a world where wars don't exist, where women and men are safe without rape, domestic violence, or sex trafficking, where food is distributed evenly and 25,000 people don't die every day from hunger, where the earth is acknowledged as our partner and not simply as a resource to be used for our benefit, where people get paid a living wage, where health care is available to all, where love is the motivating force and hope flourishes, where we realize that life triumphs over death, not just in the world to come, but also in the here and now. That is an Easter world. Easter is about believing that broken relationships in our lives can be restored, that addiction can be overcome, that we can respond to hurt with compassion and not violence, that our losses can be fertile ground for new life, and that each new day is a gift with the potential to change us. That is what it looks like to be Easter people. Easter tells us that we can face all the many kinds of death that exist in the world today and in our own lives too, and yet we can still dare to hope that things can be different. We can still risk being vulnerable enough to work at making our Easter dreams a reality. We can do all these things not because of who we are, but because of who God is. A God who loves us with a never-ending love. A God who is always bringing new life in the very places that we would deem it impossible. A God who is always creating new heavens and a new earth. Resurrection is the first and last truth about who God is, and so also about who we are and what the world is. As a friend of mine once said, there is nothing more revolutionary than the truth that never changes. In a few moments, we will renew our baptismal vows. Now, many baptismal fonts are actually 8-sided. They're octagonal. The first 7 sides are for the 7 days of creation that we hear about in Genesis. But that 8th side of the baptismal font, That symbolizes the 8th day of creation, the ongoing creation. Having been joined with Christ in his death and resurrection through baptism, we are a new creation. We hope in the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. We trust in the power of resurrection in the here and now, and we dare to believe that the risen Christ working in and through and with us can bring new life in places we could never imagine. All because the aftershocks of the earthquake at the tomb that day in Jerusalem have never stopped reverberating throughout the world. Alleluia, Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Alleluia. Don't leave me hanging.